Hey everyone, this is Mr. Martin. In these notes, we're going to continue with our Chapter 0 and 7 notes. In this video, we're going to take a look at a new type of transformation. We're going to look at reflections. So let's start with our quick notes here. So when we reflect, reflection oh boy, let's try that again. Reflection over the x-axis. Let's start with that. So let's draw a little picture here. Let's say I have a point here in the first quadrant. We'll call it xy. And then we're going to reflect it over the x-axis down there. So you could see we went to the left or to the right the same amount, but now we're below the x-axis. So the x stays the same, but the y changes to the opposite. So in this case it changes to negative, but I like to say opposite, and we'll talk more about that. So our rule here, our original xy values become x, so the x stays the same, but then the y changes to the opposite. So that's a reflection over the x-axis. Now let's take a look at a reflection over the y-axis. So it's similar. So let's look at our little graph. Here's our point in the first quadrant. We'll call it xy. Now we're going to flip it over to here, and you could see we're up the same amount this time, but now we're going from a positive x to a negative x. So we have negative x comma y. So now our rule for this one, our x, y values, the original ones, become negative x, or the opposite of x, comma, y. So those are our rules for reflecting over the x and the y-axis, and we'll talk about reflecting over the line y equals x. So that's the diagonal line, 45 degrees on the coordinate axis, so we'll talk about that. So general rule for reflection. So we want to determine how many units a point is from the line of reflection, and then draw the new point the same distance on the other side of the line. And we'll look at that as we go through some examples. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first example here. So we want to draw triangle. We'll draw a triangle ABC after a reflection over the y-axis, and then for part B, the line y equals x. So that's going to be a little bit different, but we'll take a look. Alright, so if we're reflecting over the y-axis, here's where we're reflecting. We're reflecting over the y-axis. Okay, so each point here is going to be the same distance it is on the right side of this pink line on the left side. So for A, we're 2 units to the right, so now let's move 2 units to the left. We're going to kind of estimate this because the grid is a little light. And then we're going to label that A prime. It's really important that you label the new points. And then point B is 6 units to the right. So now we're going to move 6 units to the left and the same distance up. So that's going to be 6 units right about here. And that's going to be B prime. And then C is 7 units to the right. So now we're going to move 7 units to the left. And there's C prime, and we'll connect. And there's our new reflected triangle, so we reflected it over the y-axis. Now, for the line y equals x, for part B, here's our line y equals x. I'm going to try and draw this in here as best I can. Goes at a 45 degree. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these points and we're going to flip it over the axis. So I can see here, this one is 1 unit away, so now I'm going to go 1 unit away over here to get A prime. Alright, so we could see that point A was 2, 4, and point A prime, we can see here, is 4, 2. So it looks like we might have a pattern forming here, 4, 2. Now for point B, again, it's 1 diagonal away. So now we're going to draw 1 diagonal away over here, and there's going to be B prime. So point B was 6, 5. So point B prime looks like it's 6. Looks like that's a little bit off, but it should be, yeah, it looks like I'm a little bit off, but it should be 5, 6. So you can see here for A, they just flip-flop, and for B, they just flip-flop. So now for point C, since C is 7, 1, we're going to go 1, 7 to locate point C prime. And again, this would be easier if the graph here wasn't so faded here. But this is what it's going to look like when we reflect it over this diagonal line. Okay, so we have a new rule here when we're reflecting over the line y equals x. So our rule is xy becomes yx. So this is our rule for reflection over y equals x, that diagonal 45 degree line. Alright, so add that to your toolbox. Alright, so I'm going to end this video here, and then we'll continue in the next video. Make sure if you have any questions you ask those, and make sure you get all your questions answered, and we'll see you in the next video.